You already know what time it is. Welcome back into the NFL with AJL, episode 75. We're live on a Wednesday. You guys could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're right here tapped in with us on the podcast. Before we get started, y'all, please make sure to like and share the stream, subscribe on YouTube, all the good things you do to support us on social media. And if you would please hit that QR code, it'll give you every bit of social media and podcast content at the NFL with AJL. If you want to support us on YouTube, get that super chat, super like, super thanks, super whatever it is that it'll let you engage with us in the comments to donate directly to the show, or you can DM us on social media as well to be able to donate to the cause. Hope you guys have had a great week. September is over. October is officially upon us. Q4 of 2024, which absolutely feels like the craziest year and for sure the fastest year of my life. And that means, we got some crazy and fast flying football coming on the show as well. You guys see me in the Georgia jersey. We're going to be covering Alabama escaping Georgia, Kentucky stunning Ole Miss, the Miami and Virginia Tech game takeaways, and the controversy that was in that one as well. The Falcons and the Saints, Davante Adams requests a trade as well. But every time, we have the first show of the week, we always start off the top with the double A with our weekly college football segment. Welcoming Alan into the show. What's up, bro? How are you?
Not bad. Can't complain. Good to be back on the show
Always.
once again. We have some really good topics,
Yes.
man. I'm excited.
Yes, we do. Had a crazy one. This might have been the college football game of the year, bro. I'm sure you know that, as Georgia and Alabama play an absolute
Oh
crazy
yeah.
game. Alabama escapes with the victory, 41-34 in Tuscaloosa, in a game where it felt like Alabama was going to hang 50 points on the Dogs. I didn't even know if the Dogs were going to put up a fight in this one, but they end up coming back towards the end. This is probably a top 5 college football game of all time I've ever watched. Definitely, I think, is falling in the top 3 to top 4 Georgia games just in general that I've watched overall. We'll start with you, though, man. Give me some of your takeaways. Tell me how the emotions were flying through you in this one, and just what the hell, man? What a game.
Man, so at first I ain't even gonna lie to you. When Jalen was doing
Yeah.
his thing, I was like, I think they run away with this. If UGA doesn't stay poised and respond quickly, this is gonna get out of
Yeah.
hand. And they were able to do that in the second half. But that entire first half, UGA put on a dismal performance. It was just awful. I mean, they only scored 7 points in the entire first half,
Yep.
I think. And Carson Beck threw 3 picks throughout the entire
Yes.
game, one to seal the
Yes, he
game.
did.
That I mean, I got to give UGA credit though. They came back. They were trying to get it done, trying to force an overtime situation maybe, and just they fell short,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, it was a tough one for us to lose. We come out of the gates, it's 28-0 immediately. I'm sitting there in my house and I'm just like, is this really what Georgia's game plan was? From the SEC championship when we lost against Alabama last year. And I get it, it's a different team. Kalen DeBoer is there, Nick Saban is gone. We've had some turnover with both teams that, sending talent to the NFL. And then you come out the way that you do, flat,
Correct.
lifeless, sorry, pathetic, embarrassing, effortless. All of the words should just describe not putting any effort into this game. And I just truly couldn't believe how the Georgia Bulldogs were actually playing in the biggest game of the season, in one of Kirby Smart's biggest games of his career,
Yeah.
in the biggest game of the season for Carson Beck. I mean, we understand all of the implications. There were 17 NFL teams at this game for scouts to make sure that they knew who they were going to be picking
Yep.
on Sundays, or rather who they were going to be picking in the draft and who was going to be playing on Sundays. And just for Georgia not be able to control Jalen Milroe on any drive in the first half, really, it was a great job standing him up at the end of the third quarter when he tried to run the ball a couple of times. So really containing him there in the second half. But again, Jalen Milroe heard me say that he wasn't in my Heisman race, and he said, Adam, hold my beer, because he has firmly inserted himself into that
Yes, he did.
conversation. He looks like the best player in the country potentially after this game. I mean, when you're at home, you do that to the number 2 team in the country. It looks like you cannot be stopped through the air or on the ground. I mean, again, man, it was embarrassing at some points. You had Jalen Milroe running away from the best players in the country, running away from 4 and 5-star athletes,
Yep.
and it looked like high schoolers versus professionals out there in the first half. I mean, that's just how bad Alabama was making Georgia
Yes,
look.
it did.
Jalen Milroe's draft stock has improved. Kalen DeBoer truly has a weapon in Jalen Milroe. And if they play like that, like they did in the first half, you can go ahead and hand this team the national championship if they keep that up all year. You can go ahead and hand Jalen Milroe the Heisman, or he'll have to fight with Cam Ward over it, because that was just an absolute balling out session from Alabama. And you got to respect Georgia, right, for trying to exploit the secondary with the big plays, but no run plays early on, not hitting those big shots,
Mhm.
and going down by 28 early really eliminated the run game. Jalen Milroe had more rushing yards himself at 117 than Georgia had in its entirety as a team of 80 yards. And, early on, I'm asking myself, why are we trusting Carson Beck's arm? We're 0-3 on deep shots in the first half, 5 for 14 in the second half. Check this out, Alan. 17 throws traveled 20 or more yards in this game. That is by far the most in the Kirby Smart era. Now, Carson Beck did have some good throws downfield that were dropped. And when number 11, Arian Smith, I believe, dropped that one up front first on, I was like, I don't know if we're going to get that type of look again. Like, Alabama knows that we know they have a
Yep.
susceptible secondary and that we were going to take our shots. And clearly, Carson Beck and Mike Bobo continued to take those shots downfield. Now, don't get me wrong, Carson Beck had his fair share of bad ones too, but the drops that were happening throughout the game on some of the good throws from Carson Beck really could have been pivotal early on. Now, I know some people are talking about Mike Bobo in this game as well, but I personally think, Alan, he was calling great plays. His players just weren't executing in space, because to me, and Judd in, and correct me if I'm wrong, you don't stop calling good plays when you're making a historic comeback on the road versus Alabama. He was giving Carson Beck a chance to make his mark and become great
No,
in a
you
moment
don't.
where he felt like he finally did become great. But the only play call I don't really
Yep.
like is Carson Beck's final interception. You've got so much time, the entire field to drive,
That's
and the
true.
corner just read the play at the end of the day, bro. You know what I mean? The corner just went up,
Yes, he
number
did.
2 went up,
Like a book.
made that play. And you talk, yes, he did. And you talk about Alabama's secondary being vulnerable. It showed all game long. And I think that could be an issue later on in the year. But at the end of the day, man, I'm so proud of my team for attacking them at the point. And it was a personnel problem. It wasn't it was a
Yeah.
personnel problem for not executing those plays. I'm not going to down Mike
But
Bobo
you
for continuing to put the ball in Carson Beck's hand when Alabama's secondary was susceptible on the back end. Go ahead.
gotta tip the cap to Georgia for the rally cry for the
Yeah.
troops, man. They called you something, and they were putting up a fight. But like you said,
Yeah.
that questionable call at the end really sealed the deal. Mike Bobo was just doing the best he could with what his players were doing on the field. I mean, it's like you said,
Right.
personnel problem. Carson Beck was trying to learn to keep his composure in the pocket, throw good passes. I mean, just trying to read the defense. It, and when you have a Jalen Milroe rushing for 2 touchdowns and then
Yeah.
throwing 2 touchdowns on top of it,
Yep.
it's it's pretty much a done deal there.
Yeah. Yeah. And what was crazy too is Georgia had given up one play all year of 20 plus yards. Alabama had 7 in this game, and they had 3 plays of 20 plus yards in their first 10 plays of the game. Of course, we know Carson Beck, all of his turnovers were ugly. The fumble was careless. The first 2 picks were just awful. I mean, just bad reads from Carson Beck. And this was the point in the game where I really started to lose faith in Carson
Yeah,
Beck.
absolutely.
Jalen Milroe throws that really weird interception just for Carson Beck to turn around and almost throw a pick 6 on the first throw, and then a safety for the intentional grounding. I mean, literally, I'm like, we got to bench this guy. Kirby
Absolutely.
cannot let this get to a point of Alabama beating us like 55-14, because that's how it felt. I'm like, Gunnar Stockton time. And Alan, I'm not the one to be like, oh, bench him, put the other quarterback in.
Yeah.
We have some of these radical fans. I think you just yank a professional in the NFL
Yeah.
who's been starting for 12 years and makes $55 million a year. No, you don't do that. And that kind of translates to some of these college quarterbacks with
No.
having that same, hey, pull this guy out of the game, right? And I'm not like that. So
Kill
for me to call for my quarterback to get
a
benched,
guy's confidence that way.
exactly. And I was one of the few that didn't want Stetson Bennett benched. I was like, give the guy some time. He ended up stepping up, making big plays. I'm hoping that's what can
Yeah.
happen here with Carson Beck. Defense obviously couldn't stop anything on the ground, gave over 160 rushing yards up. Georgia had a really pivotal point in the game when it was 30-15. And when they delivered there, I was like, okay, there's some life in this game. Because when they were up 28-0, I'm like, yeah, we're down big,
Mhm.
but the time is big right now. Like, we have a lot of time to get back into this game. And it was a
Right,
score,
absolutely.
a stop, keep pushing it forward, outscoring Alabama 27-11 in the second half, from 28-0 to 34-33, taking all 3 quarters to convert a 4th down, literally being the biggest comeback in Georgia history. 5 for 5 on fourth down. That's amazing. It's not sustainable,
Yeah.
though. So Georgia really had to pull some things out of the bag. I don't know if you saw Carson Beck, man, specifically in the third corner. I had my eyes on him like a laser, dude. He almost threw 4 interceptions just in the third quarter when the Dogs finally
Mhm.
mounted that 15 play,
Oh, yeah.
80-yard drive that was aided by 2 Alabama penalties. So I'm like, yeah, we're getting some slack here, but it was so much, dude. I mean, and I'll just say this. I know I've been going a lot
You
because this is game of the year. Again, this is a top 3 game to me as a Georgia
right.
fan. Number 1 was when Keely Ringo pick 6 to seal it. Number 2 was the Rose Bowl against Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Number 3 for me is probably this
Yeah,
Georgia
that's my
Alabama
number 1.
game for top 3 Georgia games all time I've ever watched. So there's a lot of takeaways. There's a lot to say about it. A few more things and then I'll be off. And then honestly, obviously, any points you have, man, go ahead and come in with them. I think Carson Beck's career, at least this season, he is a senior, probably going to be going to the draft. It's going to be defined by this schedule. All right, at Tuscaloosa, you turn around and play an Auburn team who
Absolutely.
smells blood in the water, at Texas, at Ole Miss,
Yeah.
and home versus Tennessee. So really, I'm nervous as hell, man. And this Alabama team, probably Georgia's biggest test next to Texas as well. I don't know if you knew, man, the hype around this
Yep.
game was so big compared to the game itself. I mean, they both delivered. College Game Day had its best September episode since 2010, and it was the second most viewed College Game
I
Day
don't doubt it.
episode of all time, bro. Of all.
Yeah. You got
Go ahead.
you had you had the dynasty that is
Yep.
Alabama, and then you have the dynasty that is becoming, University of
Yep.
Georgia, they with their back to
Hmm.
back. So, I mean, I expect that, and I also expected the comeback from Georgia as well. The caliber team y'all
Hmm.
are. I mean, I saw what y'all did to Clemson live.
Right.
I know the Kentucky game was a little disappointing, but I mean, they're a good team. We'll talk about them here in a
Yep.
little bit, So
Yep.
eh, Georgia's got some stuff to work on for sure. Definitely Carson Beck does too, if he has any plans of playing in the
Right.
NFL.
Right. And of course, I love that we came back and Carson Beck throws for 340 yards in the second half, and he throws for 440, basically the fourth highest total in Georgia history. But you love to know that your team has that aspect of grit to them, but it should have never got to that point. And to just allow Ryan Williams to have such a crazy prayer at Jordan type of play and then to go and take the lead, after only being down for 42 total
Yeah.
seconds in terms of, losing the football game. The 547 total yards allowed by Georgia was the fourth highest allowed under Kirby Smart. 3 of the top 5 have been to Alabama. So I don't know if I'm going to come away from this game
Yeah.
and say, oh, Georgia's definitely got an Alabama problem. I mean, clearly they still do. Kirby's now 1-6 against them under his tenure.
Yeah.
But
Sick.
Georgia showed that they can hang. Georgia showed if you punch them in the mouth on the road and you leave a lot of time left on the clock, which isn't going to be very rare, we can easily in the same breath say that Alabama took their foot off the gas. And I think this is kind of an adjustment moment for Kalen DeBoer as well. Just those big explosive plays he had in the bag.
Yeah.
But how do you pace that out over 4 quarters when you put up 4 touchdowns in 12 minutes of regulation, right? You know what I mean? Like, how do you pace that out? So I think that's going to be a
Exactly.
little more of a growing pain for KDB as well. And that could be a prime reason,
Yeah.
why Georgia got back into it. But they did attack that secondary. It was an absolutely crazy game. And wow, bro. I mean, wow. What do we say about probably what was the game of the year in college football? It delivered on all aspects.
You know what? And to talk to all the Kalen DeBoer haters out there, this was his first big
Oh yeah.
SEC
Oh yeah.
matchup, and he beat
Yeah.
Georgia. So
Right.
get off of him. Like, I'm talking to all the people that were like, "Oh, I'm
Right.
unsure. He's not really the right guy." Well, what do
Right.
you say now?
Right. There's nothing.
And I'm talking to the Tide fans too. What are you saying now? And you know me, I hate
Yeah.
Alabama, but I got to give credit where
Yeah.
it's due.
Absolutely have to.
You know?
Kalen DeBoer has been a winner, whether he was at Sioux Falls, being at Washington. Looks like he's going to continue to be a winner at Alabama. I never had a doubt that I never had a doubt that Kalen DeBoer was going to be good at Alabama. I just didn't know
Right.
how good it would be. I didn't expect to fall off of Alabama as much as we want that. Nick Saban's Coolidge over, let's just say, the last 20 years in college football, and especially in Alabama, that's not going to be just swept away. That's not going
Right.
to be just under the rug. You don't think KDB has talked to
No,
Saban
absolutely
before,
not.
and gotten some pointers from him? Like, these guys
Abs
love to work together.
He's got an office.
Right. These guys love to work together. So I have all the respect in the world for Kalen DeBoer. Hell of a game. Coached his ass off. Of course, I would have liked to see Georgia come away with the win, but it is what it is. We got to be better. And, you look at Kirby Smart's post-game speech, and he's like, he always says this, you have to win more moments than they do. And according to Kirby, and I can kind of see it from a
Mhm.
fan's perspective, there was one moment that Georgia was out-defined in, and that was when Ryan Williams took the lead back. Because Georgia came back and punched Alabama in the mouth in the
Absolutely.
second half. And I'm proud of my
Yes, they
team
did.
actually showing me something that I didn't know they had in them. And that is mounting a
Yeah.
comeback against a top 5 team on the road in Alabama with the way that game played out. But I know we've talked this game to death. Hey, I'm proud of us, bro. We got through that game without one time saying the 17-year-old Ryan
You did.
Williams. We got through it without mentioning
Right.
the 17-year-old. There's a drinking game out there. Every time they say Ryan Williams is 17, take a shot. You'll be
Right.
plastered halfway through a Alabama offensive drive. Kentucky stuns Ole Miss 20-17, and Kentucky just continues to show, man, that they are a
Mhm.
powerhouse SEC team that can be tough and physical. Maybe not
Mhm.
a powerhouse
They are.
SEC team, but they're tough and physical. And they stun Ole Miss in Ole Miss's house. Top ranked team in the country.
In
Yeah,
Oxford,
first
yeah.
time since 1978, bro. 15.5-point underdogs, and they deliver. Give me your takeaways.
Mhm. So, I mean, r right out the gate, I think they controlled all 4 phases of the game. Um, Ole Miss couldn't get anything going, not only in the second quarter, but in the fourth
Right.
quarter. They were scoreless in both of
Yep.
those quarters. So, Kentucky managed to score points in
Yep.
each one. That's why they won. That's exactly why they won, because all of them, they had both of them had rushing touchdowns and passing touchdowns. I mean, Brock Vandegrift, he was 18 of 28, I believe. And what's his name? Jackson
Mm-hmm.
Dart. Uh, he it's not his best performance, but I don't know, man. I was expecting Ole Miss to come away with that one, and they kind of shocked me there. But once again, that's the same team that y'all barely beat. You
Mm-hmm.
know that I I don't know what else to say really.
Kentucky just came out and put on a damn show.
It could, yeah, they're proving everybody why. Hey, we're good. Don't
Yep.
count us out.
Yeah,
So
they definitely come out and just and play a hell of a game against Ole Miss. And you see in the beginning of this game, Ole Miss almost had a scare on the opening kickoff. It wasn't a fumble, but I thought it was originally, and some other people thought it was originally as well. It gave that beginning of the game type of hype to the 15.5-point underdog on the road who
right,
hasn't won there since 1978. Like, you could almost say off the kickoff, you're like, ooh, this is going to be a chippy one. And again, you see how Kentucky is on Georgia's ass a couple weeks ago when Tate Ratledge goes out and taking full advantage of that. And Brock Vandegrift basically outplaying Carson Beck. Brock Vandegrift is great. It was a revenge game for him, and he turns around and almost does the same thing
yeah,
here against Ole Miss. This Ole Miss team walking into this, when I talked about it, man, they were just blowing teams off the map on both sides of the ball. They're the first team in SEC history to have 4 straight games of 600 plus yards of offense. Obviously, that was snapped in this game. They put up their
gee,
worst game of the season to give Bob Stoops his highest ranked win in his 12-year career with Kentucky. So it was a big win for Kentucky in the game.
Mark,
Excuse me, Mark Stoops, Bob Stoops. Jesus, excuse me. Where am I getting Bob Stoops from? Give me some credibility here. Okay, here
Oklahoma,
we go. There we go. All right.
yeah,
Another thing about Ole Miss in this game is they really need to thank their pass rush for keeping this game as close as it was, because Brock Vandegrift, while I do like him as a player, he was moving around a little too much in this game for my liking. And I do think that's why he took a
yeah,
good bit of sacks as well. But you got to give respect to Kentucky converting the 4th down on the drive for their first 3 points and then scoring on a long drive at the end of the second quarter to take the crowd out of the game and take that lead all the way to the 4th quarter. And I just think for Kentucky to pull this one out, it just really shows again how physical, how full of grit this Kentucky team is. I mean, almost beating Georgia in Kentucky at night, SEC game, and now you're upsetting Ole Miss at home. you got to respect what Kentucky came out and did in this game too, because 2 weeks after Stoops was facing a lot of criticism for not being aggressive enough late in the game against Georgia on 4th down when they lose by 1 point, that throw from Brock Vandegrift to Berrien Brown on 4th and 7 to get to the
Yep.
Kentucky. Wow. I mean, Brock just put that on a rope. The receiver made a great play on it going down the sideline. I'm
Mhm.
like, those are the types of plays that win football games. And clearly that one did. You look, bro, you talk about the domination, not on the scoreboard, but how tough it was for Ole Miss on the field. Kentucky held the ball for almost 40 minutes in this game. They were 3 of 3 in the red zone and on
That's
4th
true.
down. They won the turnover battle, and they held Ole Miss to 1 of 10 on 3rd down. So Ole Miss couldn't do anything with that really high fly.
Not to mention their kicker had 8
Yeah,
points too.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And, just another game for Brock Vandegrift showing off his talent, big arm, confidence. He can use his legs to make plays at time. He's a very strong runner. Ole Miss did sack him 5 times in the game. So you do see where he can kind of clean up some of his pocket presence there. But I'm going to argue that Brock Vandegrift outplayed Jackson Dart. At least by the eye test, Brock looked great. Now,
He did.
Jackson Dart looked fantastic as well. He had some of his miscues, as did Brock. But that throw to Berrien Brown is just forever resonating in my mind for how this game played out. And it was just ice cold in Brock Vandegrift's veins. I mean, seriously, that throw was ridiculous. And this felt very similar to that Kentucky Georgia matchup, that tough Kentucky team. They show up on the road. Both teams are sending blitzes like no tomorrow at each other. Kentucky with the insane fumble in the 3rd quarter. And that kind of seemed to be the only answer for Trey Harris.
Right.
11 catches, 175 yards on the game, a great touchdown. But Kentucky did their job, man. They led. They kept the crowd out of it until the 4th quarter. And they sported their top defense in the country. I mean, push back on me if I'm wrong, Alan. Kentucky has a top defense in the country.
No. They do. I mean,
Yeah.
they showed it. Because Ole Miss, everybody's been on Ole Miss's back, like, oh, they haven't played anybody
Right.
yet. Don't get sold on Jackson Dart
Right.
yet. And honestly, I got to eat crow because I was talking Jackson Dart up. I think it was
Yeah.
last week on our
Guy looks
Heisman
good,
watch.
though.
Jalen is more than, yeah, he does, but Jalen is more than jumped
It is
him
the
now.
Jalen Milroe
Jalen's
Cam Ward
probably in my
race,
number
bro.
1 spot right now.
100%. It is the Jalen
Yeah.
Milroe Cam
I
Ward
mean,
award.
And if Nico from Tennessee keeps doing what he's
Yeah.
doing, he might be in that conversation as
Right.
well. So, but I just had to put that out there, They finally played somebody that was about
Yeah.
something, and we saw how Ole Miss
Yeah.
is.
We got a chance to see what Ole Miss will do with their back against the wall in SEC play.
Right.
Because Ole Miss is going to be there at the end of the season.
Oh.
They're going to be in
Oh,
contention.
yeah, they will.
Call me crazy, but Ole Miss could win the SEC. Georgia could win the SEC. Texas could win the SEC. Alabama could win the SEC. It is open. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to take anything away from Ole Miss because they do lose this game. But we did learn something about them. If you get physical, if you push them around, and if you take their fans out of the crowd, Ole Miss is beatable.
Yeah.
Take the wind out of their sails. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Take the wind directly out of their sails. But I thought this was a great game. It was an awesome upset of the weekend. We actually got this one before Georgia and Alabama came down the pipeline. The next game we're going to discuss here was actually the Friday night game, which we had an absolute great one there. I don't know if anyone expected the Hokies to give the Canes as much of a run for money as they did. Miami escaped Virginia Tech 38-34 on a controversial Hail Mary call that I think was correct, Alan.
Yes.
I want to know from you, before we get to the takeaways, what are your thoughts on that call? Because we talk about SEC reps, ACC reps, refs by conference. I'm not really a referee guy, NFL or college football, just because we know they're inconsistent. But what do you think of just a hell of a call, no matter which way it went?
It was a hard one to make. I'll give the refs that much. Did I agree with the call? Absolutely not.
Oh,
but
so, okay.
at the end of the day, the call is final. I can't change it. Was the ball a little loose? Yeah, but I feel like he had it in his toe touch in the end zone before he went out of bounds. As far as my knowledge goes, as long as that ball crosses the plane and you have possession, that's a tutty. But
it was so hard to see.
I get why, because the guy touched it. the guy touched it after his foot went out of
Yep.
bounds from what I
Yep.
saw. But then again,
You talking about them?
it's a hard
Yeah.
call to make. The Hail
Right.
Mary, yes. Um, I mean, but aside from that, Virginia Tech showed us that Miami met their match. Like
Yep.
they're beatable. They they showed us the
Mm-hmm.
formula to stop
Mm-hmm.
Cam Ward and their
Rattle him. Get him
offense.
nervous.
And this is right. This is a key ACC win
Mm-hmm.
for them. Uh, it was just a damn good game. That's all I can say. I didn't expect that in the slightest from Virginia Tech, and this is gonna be a little bit of a blemish, I think, for Cam because he did throw two
And an ugly
interceptions.
fumble.
But hey, yeah, no ugly
Yep.
fumble. I think it drops him to
Yeah.
2. I put Jalen at
Yeah.
1.
With what Jalen's
But yeah, those are my takeaways
yeah.
from the game.
With what and those are great, by the way. With what Jalen did to the number 2 team in the country at home in one game, you can argue is more impressive than Cam Ward's 4 straight games of 300 plus yards passing. So I don't blame you, bro, because Cam Ward showed us if you put his back against the
Right.
wall, and people are going to say all year, bro got bailed out by a Hail Mary. If Miami goes undefeated on the year, everybody's
Yep.
going to look back at the VT game. Everybody will. And
Oh yeah, that's gonna be a
right,
crutch.
and it damn sure should be a blemish on Miami's case because this was their first ACC game of the year.
Yep.
They blow out South Alabama, or not South Alabama. They blow out South Florida. They blow out Florida. They're just blowing through these teams, right? Like nobody can stop Miami. They look great. They get
Probably blow us out too.
excuse me. They get rid of Ball State, right? And I guess these college teams are listening to our show, bro, because Virginia Tech said, "Oh, Adam, you think Miami's going to be far and away the team to beat in the ACC? We'd love to come into Miami's house and have something to say about that in Hard Rock." In terms of that Hail Mary call, let's start there.
Yeah.
I think the call was correct. The receiver never had full possession of the ball. I think it was very hard to see in general. I know they had so many angles of it, and I was trying my
Right.
hardest to find the leather of that football on the jersey of Virginia Tech.
Absolutely.
And it was just kind of hard, you know? It was an exciting play, but from what I saw, the ball never stopped moving despite someone's feet touching the ground first. You have to be able to hold your possession, survive the ground. And to me, Alan, the refs should have never called it a touchdown. That's where they effed up. That's where everyone's pissed because they took after Miami picks the ball up, runs down the
Yeah.
field, and they're storming the field. Coaches, back to your sidelines. After they take 30 seconds to call it a touchdown, then they come over the intercom, say it's a touchdown. They're reviewing it. When's the last time you saw a call get reviewed for 6 minutes, Alan, and it was overturned? So that's kind of going against my
I
point,
can't tell you.
right? But
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
when you look, you know, I see some Virginia Tech players going for the ball, but I don't see a full like possession pulling the ball, and it was kind of bobbling. It was bobbling. You see guys go to the
Right.
ground. It kind of bobbles out some more. I guess the best thing I can take away from it is the the ACC came out with a statement 2 hours after the game ended. Quote, during the review process of the last play of the Virginia Tech and Miami game, it was determined that the loose ball was touched by a Miami player while he was out of bounds, which by rule would make it an incomplete pass and immediately
Right.
end the play. So I could agree with that. But even then, that was hard for me to see. I
They still botched it.
I think they botched it because they originally called it a touchdown. How do you call that a touchdown?
Right.
Live?
Yeah.
How?
Right.
How? The refs are coming to
Right.
congregate. The
Irregardless,
players
or
are,
that's not a
going
word.
crazy at the bottom of the pile. Miami's done picked it up and run it to the other end. Like, these guys got a hard job, Alan. You know that I know that. These
They
guys
do.
have one of the hardest jobs in the world. So I'm not gonna, you know, go crazy over the call, really. Just want to personally give my angle of what I saw, what I thought was a correct call. I hate it for it to be called a
Right.
touchdown for
There's
the
nothing
away
wrong with that.
team, chipping away at it, and then they turn around and they take it from him. But, I thought Cam Ward was really feeling the pressure early on in this game. He had that ugly fumble recovered by Virginia Tech on Miami's first third down of the game. And it's kind of weird. Virginia Tech turns around on their very first third down of the game, busted coverage by Miami for a touchdown. Now, I did think Cam Ward recovered with a couple of nice throws on the next drive for the touchdown as well. But Cam Ward's turnovers were crazy because he had 2 interceptions walking into this game. He had 2 interceptions in this
Mhm.
game thrown through three quarters, and both of them were horrible decisions. Now, I did think Miami kind of returned the favor to themselves because there was an odd interception for their defense, and then there was another busted coverage, or rather, a busted
Right.
coverage by Virginia Tech, which Miami scored on as well. But the reason why you see Miami struggle, man, not only the turnovers, but they gave over 200 rushing yards up on the ground, while 65 yards per game was the average that they gave up walking into this one. We see Miami have a touchback that was called touchdown called back on a holding play. Cam Ward, that throw into the corner of the end zone to Jacoby George. It was just great, man. I
Right.
mean, it did turn around to hurt Miami, though, as Cam Ward did have his second turnover in two quarters on the play. Right after that, he almost threw a pick six on actually both of his ugly interceptions in this game. And you saw a Miami team that had punched people in the mouth. It was inferior competition week after week. The first ACC matchup comes up, and they find themselves in a 14 all ball game due to their quarterback's turnovers at home. Again, ACC
Right.
opener of the year. And then they're down by 10 because Virginia Tech was just simply too physical and honestly just too fast with the run game. The end around that they scored on, the run by the quarterback, the running back Tootin was absolutely going crazy in this game as well. And, I thought Virginia Tech was kind of stupid for not taking the points after Cam Ward's third turnover. It was the second interception that Cam threw. Faked field goal, no points. I hope that coach got chewed out by the AD, if that's even a thing, bro, because that was just
Right.
abominable
That was
play
a bad
calling. I
call.
mean, it was just horrendous, dude. And
Hey.
more of a sample size for us with Cam Ward, really. I mean, game-winning drive at home, ACC opener, allowing a 14-point ball game become a 10-point deficit, a 14-point tie
Mhm.
ball game become that 10-point deficit because of your turnovers, seeing how he adjusted and made big play after big play, the fifth straight game of over 300 yards passing for Cam Ward, and another game of 400 yards of total offense. So, Miami showed us
Right.
that if you get physical with them, and it's like, a lot of teams in football, it's just
Oh, yeah.
a
They're gonna meet
lot
your
of
match eventually.
teams. Right. A lot of teams can't get physical. And
Mm-mm.
when you
They can't.
show a team that they are able to get physical, you get pushed around a lot. Again, we saw it in
Yes, you
Kentucky and
do.
Georgia, Kentucky and Ole Miss, Virginia Tech and Miami. It's a very simple point of the game that can really expose a lot of teams. And, it was
No.
just good to see Miami's back against the wall at
Right.
home. And again, I think it was the right call, but a lot of people are going to sit there and say that they stole one.
Right. I mean, regardless of the outcome, if I'm Virginia Tech, I use this as fuel to keep me
Oh,
going.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Throughout ACC play and maybe even into the playoffs. I mean, it, anything can happen in this sport. We know this.
Yep.
But yeah, man, tough loss for them. But if they can hold on and keep playing physical, like you said,
Yep.
they might be about something.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right, brother. I'm gonna let you pop out so I can catch some NFL here. Always appreciate you jumping
Absolutely.
in. Alan
Talk
and
good
I will
about
be
my
back with
Titans.
more. Oh, no Titan talk tonight, but I have no disrespectful things to say about your Titans, bro. Y'all pulled out that win. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
we did.
You you
Much
you weren't
deserved.
gaffing away a second straight winnable game like my New Orleans Saints did, which I'll jump into here. But I appreciate you, bro. I love you. As always, guys, Alan will be on the next show when we talk college football. And go ahead and jump in the comments for us, bro. And I'll see you on the
Yes,
next show.
sir. For sure, man.
Oh man, what a weekend of college football. What a weekend of college football it was. But now we're going to switch to the NFL topics of the show. Again, this is episode 75 of the NFL with AJL. I appreciate everybody jumping into the show tonight. You could have been anywhere else on a Wednesday, I almost said a Friday, but you're right here tapping with me on the show. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell on YouTube so you never miss a post for any of our content on the platform. And as always, the lovely QR code in the corner of the screen is every bit of social media and podcast content at the NFL with AJL on all platforms. As always, we are sponsored by Buy and Sell with AJL for all your worldwide professional real estate needs. Looking to buy a home, sell a home, or invest in real estate, this is the real estate team that you need on your side. And we're sponsored by PlayStation at PlayStation Online on all social media platforms. Use code AJL at checkout if you want to get some apparel from the best gaming and Christian collab or best gaming and worship collab in general that there is on the planet. You see the logo there on the lower third. You see the social media handle. You see the code to use at checkout to get you guys a special deal if you want to go cop some merch. Put it on a hat, put it on a hoodie, a sticker, whatever you guys want. Hit them up, and I know that they would love to make that piece of attire come to fruition for you. The Atlanta Falcons escaped the New Orleans Saints 26-24 in Atlanta. I was there on the longest field goal ever at Mercedes-Benz Stadium by Younghoe Koo. I mean, another crazy game to be a part of, to witness. The Saints choke away another game, second straight week in a row that they do this with bad coaching. And I almost feel like this team had me fooled through the first 2 weeks. Y'all got blessed by not seeing an insufferable New Orleans Saints fan through those first 2 weeks when the Saints had put up 91 points. And the only other team to do that was the 09 Saints. They shouldn't have showed us that. They shouldn't have done that to us. And I understand that McCoy gets hurt. You're dealing with some injuries, but you've still been in a position in these last 2 weeks to win. And you've just absolutely gagged it away. It's horrible. It's horrible. Let's start with the fact that the Saints gift wrapped Atlanta 14 points between a super weird, lucky pick six. Derek Carr is trying to throw a screen. Balls popped in the air straight to Troy Anderson. Runs down the sidelines. Chris Olave, piss poor tackle. I mean, what more can I say other than every time Derek Carr has thrown a pick six, I have been in the building since he's been a New Orleans Saint. Every time. Every time. Falcons game this year, Falcons game last year. I believe he threw a pick six against the Jaguars last year on Thursday Night Football. Not to mention our all-pro punt returner thinks it's okay to field a punt inside the 5-yard line. I'm literally trying to get my stuff and get to the stands at the game, and I see that Shaheed, I see Atlanta runs over into the end zone, and I'm like, oh, they had a fumble as they were going in. No, the Saints forced a 3 and out. Rashid Shaheed thinks it's smart to field a punt on the 1, and he can't catch it. Let that punt go. Live with the fact that the offense is going to have the ball at the 1-yard line possibly, or let it roll into the back of the end zone. It's not that hard, Sheed. Another situational blunder with not only the awful Dennis Allen play calling, but now it looks like Clint Kubiak's play calling situationally is just not something that is really benefiting the Saints over the last couple of weeks. Going for it on 4th and 7 instead of kicking the field goal and taking the points. That could have changed the course of the game. It could have made Atlanta have to score differently. Despite giving up the 14 points and beating yourself, Taysom Hill's hurt after scoring 2 touchdowns. Your O-line is banged up. No Demario Davis, who is your best defensive player, arguably. You still had a chance to win this damn football game. And you don't. And I told you I wasn't afraid of Atlanta's offense, and we shouldn't have been. I've never seen a fan base more excited about 4 field goals. We keep it on track here. Losing Taysom Hill after he scored 2 touchdowns in this game was huge. You had a banged up Olave. Apparently Taysom Hill's got a rib injury. Alvin Kamara played with broken ribs. Again, a struggling offensive line. You still score 21 points on the road against a defense who's been stingy, only giving up 18. So it's hard to hang this L on the offense, and it's really hard to hang it on, Derek Carr or even Clint Kubiak as well, because the Saints played well enough to win this game. There's no question about that. The Saints played well enough to win this football game for a second straight week in a row, and because they don't know how to situationally play call and coach and perform, that is why the Saints lost this game. And it's just aggravating to see because the Saints could easily be at a 4-0 record right now. And I'm not a delusional fan saying that, but if you kick the field goal against the Eagles, it plays out differently. If you don't go forward on 4th and 7 here, it plays out differently. Their offense was not frightening us. They had to kick 4 field goals and a 58-yarder off of 14 gift wrap points for a reason. But guess what? Only the Saints can do that. Only the Saints can hold a team to 4 field goals, but let their other teams give up 14 points to the opposing team. And it plays out that way. Special teams blunder, pick 6 from Derek Carr. What more can we say? Again, I've never seen a fan base more happy about 4 field goals in my life. Of course, I was hearing it from the fans as I was leaving the stadium, and I would have let the fans hear it through the stadium as well if we would have won with 4 field goals. So don't even get me wrong on that point. But I told y'all I wasn't afraid of the Falcons offense. Kyle Pitts is a ghost again. Whether it's injuries, he can't create separation. Now people are calling him a bust. No catches, no yards. 15 carries for 88 yards for the Atlanta Falcons in this game. But the Saints outgained the Falcons in all aspects of this game. I mean, every aspect. The Saints, Here we go. The Saints outgained the Falcons by 51 yards. They had a little more passing yards. They definitely had more rushing yards. The Falcons had more yards per play, but the Saints had more first downs. They were better on third and fourth down. They ran more plays. Both teams were sacked the same amount of times and punted the same amount of times. They won the penalty battle. They lost the turnover battle, which is what hits them. But the Saints held the ball for 11 more minutes as well. So when you literally give a team 2 possessions, most teams aren't going to let that slip away. But the Saints do, just like when they steal possessions last week versus the Eagles. Fumble from Jalen Hurts, pick from Jalen Hurts, you block a punt, 2 fourth down stops. But only the Saints can figure out a way to lose that game. You beat yourselves, you lose the turnover battle. It's very hard to win that way. Now, the Falcons defense, from what I could see up in the stands, they weren't stopping much of the New Orleans Saints in this game. And with the Saints holding the ball for 11 minutes longer, it showed that the Saints controlled the clock. They did what they had to do. The offense, I thought, looked much better this week, adjusted to having a shorthanded offensive line, offensive players not being 100%. I think if Taysom Hill stays healthy in this game, the Falcons have a lot of problems with him because the Falcons just seem to, over the years, have never really had an answer for Taysom Hill. I thought the offensive line also gave Derek Carr mostly clean pockets, but we didn't attack downfield at all on Atlanta. I guess Kubiak was showing respect to one of the best safety tandems in the league, you can argue, in Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons. But this is the second straight week, again, of the Saints shooting themselves in the foot. If you don't coach bad situationally, you're at least 3-1. Could easily be 4-0. But these are the types of losses that have defined the Saints since Dennis Allen has been the head coach. These are the types of losses that hurt you later in the year for playoff seeding and making the playoffs, playoff eligibility. 2 straight games by not taking the points. And I'm not trying to be that after the fact head coach because games are going to change based on how different things happen. But that's the point I'm making. If you take those points in the back-to-back games, that margin potentially does not haunt you. You put pressure on the other team to have to come down and score a touchdown, not a field goal to win it or tie it or whatever the case is. I don't understand why coaches don't like taking points. But like I said, this team might have fooled me through 2 weeks because this league is mostly won on good coaching. And I think the Saints are very talented on both sides of the ball. But those games where it isn't perfect, where things go a little awry, where the situational football has to be pretty good because the margin for error in this league is so slim, as you can see. Coaching and quarterback play really step up in that time. And I think that's where we're going to be doomed. And for people talking about Dennis Allen's defense slowly continues to not be clutch in the NFL. And let me tell you guys why. Because since Dennis Allen has been the head coach, I'm pulling the stats up here. Phone better not die. Dennis Allen's defenses have not been clutch in late games. The Saints are now 0-4 under Dennis Allen when opponents start the drive between 2.5 minutes and 1 minute left, and the Saints are leading by 6 or less. 2022 Tampa. If y'all remember, we lost that game late in the season. It kept us out of the playoffs because of bad situational football and bad situational coaching defensively. Cincinnati in 2022, we had a chance to get back on track. I think had a chance to get to 500 or go one game above 500, and we lose that game. Last week versus Philadelphia, this week versus Atlanta. So, again, Dennis Allen's running out of excuses. And I didn't get on here, I was very busy at the time, and tell you guys what my wish list was for the New Orleans Saints. But I was going to say it, and I'll still stick to it. The New Orleans Saints have to make this the last year of Dennis Allen and Mickey Loomis. They have to. I love what these guys have done for the franchise. I've loved what they've done since they've been in the building. But Mickey Loomis, you're condoning this. You're keeping this guy on board. You're the one kicking the can down the road here. You're the one that wanted to sign Chase Young. We're the ones that wanted to give Derek Carr the money. Derek Carr's money doesn't feel bad, right? But how long do we stay trapped in the has-been days? Because we play the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football. We're going to have to play the Denver Broncos. I can't remember what the third game is, but the Saints are going to have to play 3 games in about 10 or 11 days. And that's going to tell us a lot about this team. It's really hard for teams to do. Just about every team in the NFL is going to have to do that. But when I see stuff like this, I've seen the ceiling. 40 plus a game, Kubiak's a monster. Week 1 was the Panthers, and it's week 1. We all know where that can be. And Dallas's defense is bad without Dan Quinn. You get hurt against the Eagles, and then you do decent against the Falcons. So the Saints do have some room for improvement. The Saints do have some things to be excited about, but you have to get better with coaching because it's not going to get easier. I mean, you have fans thinking that we're just going to immediately go 0-3, we're going to drop the next 3 games. We're not losing to the damn Broncos. I'll be at that game, and I'll be damned if in Drew Brees' Hall of Fame game for the Saints in New Orleans, we drop it to Sean Payton, who's coming in with the Broncos. I'll be damned if that happens. Davante Adams has come out and requested a trade, the first trade request of the 2024 NFL season. So we're going to jump on here, talk about some potential landing spots for him. No, I don't have the New Orleans Saints landing him. 1, because we can't have nice things. And 2, Davante needs to go to a contender. I understand he wants to play with a former quarterback, and the Jets and the Saints are high on his wish list. But a player this good is going to have a big cap hit because of the 5-year, $140 million deal he signed when he went to the Raiders. He's going to have a $13.5 million cap hit. So the Saints realistically can't afford him. He wants to go to a contender, while the Saints could be a fringe contender right now because 2 weeks really shocked you, but the last 2 weeks, they feel like the 2023 Saints. I'd like to see him come over, but just to preface that up there, I don't believe Davante Adams is going to become a New Orleans Saint. He can't go to a division rival, so that eliminates the AFC West. That eliminates the Chiefs and the Chargers, even though they could really use one. I mean, who knows? The Raiders could be as incompetent as the Giants and think that Davante Adams is declining in production, and they could send him to an in-division rival, which would be absolutely stupid. But, I mean, we've seen worse, right? So the 6 teams that I think could make a nice home for Davante Adams. The Washington Commanders, first and foremost. This team is 3-1. Jaden Daniels is playing his life out right now as a rookie quarterback. And for some odd reason, Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury have got this team in a good position. They've got Terry McLaurin making great plays. They've got Austin Eckler and Luke McCaffrey out there. They've got a defense that's trying to hang with some of the best, even though we know that there could be some more improvement on that side of the ball. And you insert Davante Adams, who is going to get his looks and his touches from a rookie and Jaden Daniels. And that he's going to get his catches. He's going to get his production. That's what Davante Adams needs. Yes, Terry McLaurin is that wide receiver 1. And you could even have Davante be a nice wide receiver too, because that's bona fide going to be your first and second options, whether Terry's first or Davante's first. I think the Washington Commanders could make a bid. The Washington Commanders have cap space to be able to go and get Davante Adams. His production would be there. Command space, who actually do have the cap space to be able to go and get Davante Adams as well. Of course, it would be obvious reuniting. Excuse me, guys. It would be obvious reuniting Davante Adams with Aaron Rodgers under that leadership of Robert Saleh. And, with Nate Hackett in the building, it would be weird because it's such a different time of the NFL for Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams being split apart for a couple years. I'm not going to say that these guys couldn't light it up and come out after only playing 3 games and have 1,200 yards over the next 14 weeks. I'm not saying that that's out of the question at all because we've seen Davante Adams do that. We've seen a turf toe injury keep Davante Adams from having 7, 8 straight years of double-digit touchdown catches. And I think it would be no different with Aaron Rodgers here, but can Nate Hackett scheme them up? Are they contenders? I don't know. Production would be there, and the team has the money to go and get them. The Green Bay Packers, giving Jordan Love, Davante Adams, when you do have a Christian Watson there, you do have a Romeo Doubs, but who's really that one? And yeah, you could come and say, oh, well, Christian Watson or, oh, Romeo Doubs is definitely the one. I'm not convinced of that. If you're a Packers fan, you probably have solidarity in that statement, but I'm not convinced of that. Davante Adams knows that Matt LaFleur is a very good coach, and he would have that immediate recognition there. No question about that whatsoever. I think the Packers could be a good fit. Feel like they're in a little bit of a lull right now. But the Green Bay Packers, I know, would welcome Davante Adams back home. They've got the money. They could get the production. You could argue that the Packers are a contender, even though it's early on in the season because of how they played last year. Very promising young team. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I think, could have a great claim at Davante Adams as well. If you got George Pickens, Calvin Austin, Pratt Freiermuth trying to come into his own. Obviously, they have Najee Harris. Might feel weird to give a guy like Davante Adams, who needs a lot of touches, to a just now getting into the average quarterback area of Justin Fields. It is what it is, though. The Steelers are still looking solid. Yes, they do just lose to the Indianapolis Colts. I hate what happened with Anthony Richardson. I hope he gets healthy and gets better. But the Steelers, early on in the season, they could be a decent contender. I don't think they're going to be a team that goes to the Super Bowl, but if they mess around and get a player or two from the AFC Championship, we're not surprised because we know what Mike Tomlin can do. And you put Davante Adams in an offense like that, and offenses has really been looking for that big-time player, and they can make big-time plays. Don't get me wrong. We talked on the last show about how well they're playing so far, especially with Justin Fields, but this would just make them better. The Baltimore Ravens, I think, would be a fantastic place for Davante Adams as well. Yes, there is a Zay Flowers. Yes, there is a Derrick Henry. You do have a Rashad Bateman. You have a Mark Andrews and an Isaiah Likely. So maybe it's a little loaded there, but it's very rare that you can have an embarrassment of riches in the NFL. And to keep Davante Adams from going to an in-division rival, because again, a player this good cannot go to an in-division rival, I think the Baltimore Ravens could have a good claim at him. It would be a little weird trying to fit him into the system. I think I think the Baltimore doesn't have quite enough money on the cap, so they would have to rework some deals, maybe restructure some things to get him to come in. But I'm very positive if they think that that's a good fit, they'll bring him in because they didn't hesitate to bring Derrick Henry in on the deal that they did. And Derrick Henry looks great. Keep feeding Derrick Henry the ball. And if you had a guy out there like Davante Adams who could really give that confidence to Lamar Jackson, yeah, he might be fighting for targets with an Isaiah Likely or with a Mark Andrews or maybe with a Zay Flowers who's coming into his own. So that might be one of the weaker standpoints here to go with the Baltimore Ravens because of how crowded the wide receiver room and the talent room is. But the final team that I think can make a great push, they've looked great so far. Their quarterback is in the MVP conversation and might be the MVP through a month of football. Give me those Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills would need to make some things happen on their cap in order to restructure and get Davante Adams on there. But, I don't think any Bills fans would be upset about that happening. I also don't think any Bills fans either would turn away an extreme trade offer. Maybe a little bit of a desperate trade offer for Davante Adams. Bills lost a lot in the offseason. They lost a lot. And yeah, Josh Allen's doing his best and Sean McDermott's doing his best. And this offense is looking like one of the best in the NFL. Now we do see the Ravens just smack them up on a football game. And that's why the Ravens are in the conversation too to possibly have Davante Adams. But the Buffalo Bills would easily, I think out of all these teams, you plug him right in, and he's with that superstar quarterback, the best quarterback out of anyone on this list, respectfully. Maybe not by much for you over a Lamar or maybe over a Jordan Love or an Aaron Rodgers, but he's the best quarterback on this list out of everyone that Davante Adams could go to. You restore that number one in Buffalo. You do see James Cook coming into his own. You do see Dawson Knox as well. But something outside of Shakir would be nice. And Josh Allen would have, maybe it's a little skeptical because, Davante Adams isn't necessarily a diva, but he is going to call for the ball. And as he should, because he's a guy who could score 10 plus touchdowns a year. So maybe you're worrying about Stephon Diggs type of situation replicating itself. I don't personally think that, but I could see why some people would possibly be hesitant. So give me the Commanders, the Jets, the Packers, the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Bills to possibly put in a trade request for Davante Adams. The Jets have checked in. The Cowboys said that they are not interested in signing. I think the Chargers would be good, but again, it's an in-division rival because they lost a lot in the offseason. The Chiefs could definitely use it. Now we don't know, they don't know specifically what's going on with Rashee Rice. But Davante Adams would, I think, look very solid with these 6 teams here. I would have loved to throw some more out there. Of course, again, I would love my Saints to be able to do it because they're reunited with Derek Carr. But the Saints are so fringe contenders. I could see Davante getting pissed. I could. Chargers, in-division rival, but they're lacking a lot. And again, the Chiefs as well. That was episode 75 of the NFL with AJL. I appreciate everybody jumping into the show tonight. to review, to chop up Alabama escaping Georgia in the best college football game we've seen in a long time, the Miami and the Virginia Tech controversy on the Hail Mary, Kentucky stunning Ole Miss, the Falcons escaping my Saints, and as we just went over, the Davante Adams trade request as well. Please make sure before we get out of here that you guys like and share the stream wherever you may be watching. Please subscribe on YouTube as well. Hit the bell, like the stream so you never miss a post from anything that we're pushing out on YouTube. That's probably our biggest platform where we push out most of our content. And if you hit the QR code there in the corner of your screen, it'll give you every bit of social media and podcast content at the NFL with AJL. If you can't find me, you're simply not looking hard enough. We'll see you guys on episode 76. Might be Friday or Saturday, not sure yet because we were a day late with the episode this week. But as always, I love y'all. I need y'all, and I will see you guys. And